So last week, ChatGPT announced it would make erotica available to its verified adult users, while at the same time, Instagram says it's going to restrict content available to teens. Both of these announcements raise all kinds of questions about the safety of these platforms, so let's talk about it. I'm Emil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. I've got Vas Bednar and Samantha Cole here to talk about it. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Okay, I guess you guys were staying up late watching the Jays, and that's why you had a little delayed reaction there.
I have no excuse.
Can you repeat the question?
Exactly. I mean, let's just start by saying go Jays, go. But Vas, I want to start with you. Let's talk about this term erotica. What types of content would fall under that banner on ChatGPT?
Okay, let the record show it's the first time Vas Bednar has been platformed as the expert on erotica, but we're not,
and not the last.
We're not talking about sort of explicitly pornographic or visual sexual content, at least not yet with this platform, right? So ChatGPT's bringing on erotica refers to text-based adult, I'll say themed writing, stories, scenes, role play. Could be somebody speaking to a character that they've made, or a person that they're sort of imagining with sexual or romantic elements. Right now, their classification system treats this as erotic material because it's sexually suggestive. So even if it's just words on a page, so it is something different than they were initially promising us they'd be working on.
So it's like think 50 Shades of Grey and not porn.
Probably it was trained on 50 Shades of Grey and all the versions of 50 Shades of Grey. Yes, exactly. Not a porn version, not pornographic material. But
all
in
the fan
universe,
fiction on Wattpad.
100%. It's like live fan fiction. Yeah.
So Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT. Let's take a listen to this exchange between Altman and podcaster Cleo Abram that happened in August.
There's a lot of things we could do that would grow faster, that would get more time in ChatGPT, that we don't do because we know that our long-term incentive is to stay as aligned with our users as possible.
Are there specific examples that come to mind? Any decisions that you've made?
Well, we haven't put a sex bot avatar in ChatGPT yet.
That does seem like it would get time spent.
Apparently it does.
Okay, so there's Sam Altman saying, we haven't done it yet. Samantha, that's back in August. How do those comments sort of square with this foray into erotica?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He's admitting a couple things in that podcast and just in that couple sentence exchange. He's saying that they haven't needed to stoop as low as sex with ChatGPT yet, and that they see themselves above it, which is interesting because now that they've announced the erotica aspect, it's kind of like, are you now in desperate need of juicing growth, I think is what he said. What's the deal with that? It's, you used to be very anti this, as he says before it, that there are choices that you have to make about what's good for the company versus what's good for the world, basically. What's good for the health of your users and what's good for becoming the winner in the space. And he's saying, well, that's a choice that we haven't made. And basically saying, well, the sex bots are the bad for the world, but good for the company option. And looking back at that retroactively, it's like, did you make a choice on this that's now you're saying is bad for users? Did you change your mind in the last 2 months? What happened there?
Yeah, Vas, let's talk about that. And Sam's Samantha's sort of alluding to that choice to quote unquote juice the platform. What do you think's driving this move to erotica? Why now for ChatGPT?
I think Sam, not Samantha, says it in that quote when he mentions time, right? So relaxing these restrictions for adult users can increase engagement, usage time, and then they can potentially increase their subscription price, right? Or kind of premium membership in terms of, what people are paying them. We know they've lost and are losing quite a bit of revenue. I also note him saying, well, we really want to stay aligned with our users. I think there's this element also, I hate the term user, as many do for people who engage with digital tools. But I think there's this tension where he's sort of saying, well, this is something that people want, right? Um, we all provide kind of live user testing for these products when they're out in the wild. We know that these programs are somewhat incomplete, right, and messy. And then when people do engage in this way because it's a novelty, because they're curious, because they have time, there are a bunch of different reasons. It doesn't mean that as Samantha said, it's necessarily something that's like good or meaningful. But I think there's definitely a novelty aspect here where people probably can't resist if they end up being a verified adult, uh, engaging in some way to sort of see what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories about people marrying their I don't even know what you call these things, like their ChatGPT avatar, the creation that they
Yeah.
speak to. And so I can't imagine that this would be better for people like that who are already finding themselves overly engaged with this digital tool. What do you think about
No,
that, Bess?
I mean, that replacement or sort of outsourcing, this new kind of positioning of chatbots as companions, right? Companions of all kind now, more romantic companion, I think is risky, I think is damaging, I think changes our expectations of our own relationships in our everyday lives, right? When you have a chatbot, again, in a non-erotic context, who's always praising you, thinks everything you say is great, is really nice to you, thinks you're super smart, responds to you immediately, like every time you write something, I think there are risks where people start to spill over and expect that from their friends too, right? And start to substitute. So it's a very strange, sort of surreal moment that we're in, but it's that same moment where we're seeing people rejecting the technology and also saying, the climate effects, the water, the energy that these systems are taking, are we really damaging the planet and our electrical grids so that we can, have erotic chats with a computer system? I don't know. I want a jetpack.
Yeah, me too. Samantha, so the term verified adult user is how Sam Altman's sort of selling this access, but how's this going to work? Who actually gets to have erotic chats with their companion?
Yeah, so pretty recently, OpenAI made this announcement that didn't get a ton of attention because it was pretty rote, not that exciting, but it was basically, they're going to try to recognize teenagers who are using the platform, obviously in light of a lot of the really tragic stories that have come out where teenagers have used ChatGPT and harmed themselves, or worse. So I think as part of that, they're looking at how to keep teens from using it in damaging ways, but also not losing the adults that they want to keep on the platform and keep engaged, that are so important and are paying the pro subscriptions. So the age verification aspect of this that he's hinting at here is something that has been sweeping the country in the US. I know it's been talked about pretty lengthily in Canada and in the UK. There's also, these legislations are being passed. So I think he's probably seeing that they can't just let it rip with sex bots and also not verify ages, because something very bad is going to happen and they'll be in a lot of trouble. And I think, yeah, it's a little bit concerning. I mean, it's very concerning to me as someone who covers age verification pretty frequently, because age verification can be so privacy invasive, the way that it's been rolled out so far, requiring government IDs on lots of different websites. Every platform that you use that has not safe for work content, you're going to have to show your government ID, along with probably a selfie for biometric data. So I see him going in that direction with all of this in one big sweeping package. Like, if you want to have sex with ChatGPT, you're going to have to show your ID, and a lot of people want that. So I think it's pretty natural to assume that people are going to give their IDs to OpenAI. I don't know if I love that.
Yeah, there are a lot of data concerns about that, and certainly who they're partnering with and who gets access to your information. At the same time, Vass, so jumping on what Samantha mentioned about these lawsuits against OpenAI, concerning a teenage son who took his life and that tragedy and how that's unfolding and what it means for ChatGPT. And then I mentioned earlier, Instagram has introduced these PG-13 restrictions on certain content. I want to know from you, like, how effective are these types of measures, these age restrictions, on actually preventing sort of people engaging with harmful content that shouldn't be?
Look, it's pretty performative company policy, right? It's not company policy. I think age verification measures can be well-intentioned, but they kind of don't get at the core issues, right? I don't think we need to be placing the burden of governance onto parents, onto young people. It fundamentally doesn't change that we're very constrained in Canada, but everywhere, basically, in terms of that we cannot hold and do not hold platforms accountable for the content that they produce, right? So Sam Altman isn't being held accountable, even though there's these lawsuits. Let's see what happens, and it's a terrible tragedy. It's unfathomable. I think it's just sort of skimming the surface, and it's a private company trying to brag about something that they're doing that A, they should have done a very long time ago, B, is fairly imperfect, and C, doesn't change what's on these platforms, what's enticing people, and kind of the information that they're collecting. And back to just being a verified user and doing this, people are putting so much trust in that toolbar, right? Data leaks, sharing your erotic curiosities, whatever, these stories could be very invasive, professionally damaging. And like, what's it all for at the end of the day?
Yeah.
To sell us stuff, to know more about us. Like, it's just, that's the most perverse thing. Like, forget something sexy that you're saying in the chatbot. There's something really, I think, perverted about the whole thing.
Samantha, you mentioned, this is something that you look at very frequently. So what is more effective than these sort of age-based verification tools? Is there a better way of making sure people don't reach this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so my primary beat is on the adult industry, and the adult industry is usually pretty ahead of the technology and a lot of this stuff, and is also the target of a lot of this legislation. So what they're recommending, and what I think is a pretty solid recommendation in, like Vass said, this very imperfect situation where you don't want to censor adults, but you also don't want kids having access to harmful material. What the adult industry is saying is there are device-based measures you could take before a kid even gets an iPhone. You can put parental controls on it. You can have users of a device verify their age. Even if you want to use like an ID or something, that's still one place where you're putting your ID instead of 50 different websites that are asking for your ID, 50 different third parties. All these platforms that are very susceptible to breaches and hacks and have God knows what security and privacy practices in place. I think at the device level is something that already exists. This technology is ready to use today. We don't need new laws or new cottage industries for age verification to make it work. But it also requires people to pay more attention to what they're doing when they get advice. It's more of an active stance for the user than being hit with a restriction on Pornhub, for example, that's saying you can't continue unless you show your ID. And then you're like, well, now I'm forced to do this if I want to access adult material at all. And it's not just adult stuff. It's Blue Sky is blocked in a lot of states now if you don't show your ID. If you want to see adult material, which is a lot of stuff, not just porn. It's like basically anything above PG-13 or PG-18, whatever that is, R. There's Discord, just had a huge breach of age verification data where people's faces were seen with their IDs because that's part of the process alongside their usage data. That was all breached and out there in the open.
That's scary.
You're opening yourself up to more and more places where your personal information could be exposed if you're just doing it on a platform basis.
Right. So Vas, very quickly, I only have about 30 seconds here, but, I'm sure people listening to this are going, if their parents, wow, I'm freaked out, like, what can I do? So, what are some things you might want to consider in this moment as this technology continues to move rapidly ahead?
I liked Sam's suggestion of, are there hardware-based solutions? Are there even entirely different devices other than that we should be having for younger people, other than just sort of controlling through software? I think fundamentally reminding people that our brains are superior to large language models, but they're also models that we train, over time through what we consume, and that the most interesting thing a young person can do is develop their own voice and do their own kind of reading and not rely on a chatbot for their writing or for their kind of flirting. I think that's one of the best things we could do for now.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as a parent of 3, this is something that's always on my mind. So really appreciate you having this conversation with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Samantha Cole co-founded 404 Media. She's in Brooklyn today. And Vas Bednar is a policy expert at McMaster. She is in Toronto.